I'm Ogechi Ekianyao, and during the weekends, we talk about the impact of the pandemic in Nigeria. These are unprecedented times, and the pandemic is ensuring that we change our lives tremendously. Since the first reported case, the virus has left businesses around the world counting losses, while some have been completely destroyed. Most governments have had their resources stretched. Aviation is one of those sectors that suffered losses, mainly as a result of travel restrictions imposed by governments across the globe as part of efforts to flatten or to curb the spread of the coronavirus. The dwindling revenues resulting from flights cancellation have also led to the bankruptcy of several airlines as well as job cuts. Major players in the aviation sector have warned that the industry may take about 5 years to recover from the impact of COVID 19. The Nigerian government, like governments elsewhere, shut its airports to non essential flights in March to check the spread of COVID 19. As lockdowns are being released by governments, as lockdowns are being eased by governments, the aviation sector has begun to strategize on new ways of doing things. Airlines across the world are putting plans in place to ensure that passengers and staff adhere to public health measures. Our guest today is Sam Adurogboye, the General Manager, Public Affairs, Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. Mr. Sam Adurogboye, thank you for joining us.
Regulatory authority of the aviation had just shut down the airspace. So we are guided and we rely on those guidance. That is exactly what happened.
Okay, but the delay in shutting down this airspace, what people consider the delay in shutting down this airspace, was really sort of increased the number of cases we had in Nigeria. At the initial stage, we had most cases coming in from people traveling into the country. So what do you have to say?
Well, I think we have gone past the issue of whether we delay in closing down the airspace or not. The issue is that the disease is here. The issue is how to manage it and get out of here. I think that is paramount to us. We have gone past beyond that. I think we should just begin to look forward on how to overcome the problem that is here with us. The only way for you not to have the disease at all, because it's something that it's through movement, is to close down your airspace. Airspace is not just wake up and close down. You are talking of movement of your national, you are talking of movement of other national in and out of your country. So to shut down airspace is reciprocal. You don't wake up and take it. But having said that, I think we have gone past that now. The problem is here with us. And the good thing is that it's being well managed. And that is why we've not had that kind of high level of debt. So let's just move forward and to where we're at now.
Okay, so flight operations were scheduled to resume on June 21st, but was then postponed till July 8th on Wednesday when airline resumed operations. What were the reservations that informed the postponement?
I didn't get your question again.
Why did you postpone the resumption of
domestic flights? You mean domestic flights?
Domestic flights, exactly.
Oh, okay. Basically, what happened was that the initial date of 21st of July was not actually, I think it was a media misinterpretation. What was announced by the Presidential Task Force was that with effect from July 21st, they will wait for a report from the aviation authorities as to how prepared they are to resume operation. That they whether from 21st, they whether be ready by 21st or 26th or 27th or 28th or first week of August. But immediately that was announced, the media took it up to say that flight will resume. It just goes to show that everybody is eagerly waiting to resume air travel again. That's just what we learned from that. It's not that they fixed 21 and postponed. That was actually what happened.
Okay, so what has been the impact of the pandemic on the economics of the Nigerian aviation sector?
Well, just like you said in your opening remarks, it has been very devastating. You are talking about an agency, for example, of ours, that is spending and no income. And same goes for the airport authority. The same goes for the airlines. They have salaries to pay. and they have facility to maintain the aircraft. Storage maintenance was being done, training was being done online, and of course, the pandemic has brought about now spendings that were not budgeted for. All the markings, all the equipment, the masks, and all the acquiring, the sanitizers, all the medical equipment were being acquired at a cost, and it was not budgeted for. And at the time, there was no revenue. So it has been very, very disastrous, but you just have to make a sacrifice to ensure that lives are safe rather than looking at the economy aspect of it. For now, we are looking at coming out of it safe and be alive.
Okay, in terms of coming out of this whole thing safe and in the light of resumption of operations, I'd like to ask about, because there's been this sort of raging debate on the viability of leaving the middle seats empty. There are different sides to the debate. Some airline operators say it's just not sustainable, as it will jack up air prices and affect the economics of aviation, and maybe even cause a sharp increase in unit cost. But there's still the real risk of spreading the virus in that sort of enclosed space. What is the NCAA stance on this argument?
Well, there is no argument. Anything in aviation, before we arrive at conclusion, we go through a kind of a discussion through a stakeholders forum. Discussion is still continuing about that, but again, we have to take cognizance of the fact that even the aerodynamics of aeroplane, infections or whatever, could not even be spread because of the dynamics, because of the compressurization on board the aircraft. Even any virus that comes in there cannot even survive. But having said that, the fact still remains that you have to look at what happened elsewhere. We are monitoring, we are collaborating. We are also relying on the prescription from not only our United Nations agency, which is International Civil Aviation Organization. We are waiting for their prescriptions. We are being guided, and also we are being guided by World Health Organization. We are being guided by NCDC. We are being guided by Federal Ministry of Health. So all of these information as they are coming in, we are processing it. That will be ultimate guide as to whether or not there's going to be an empty seat. But for now, that is what has been prescribed as the protocol from the health authorities. But you will know that even from the resumption of flight, the load factor has not been full in itself. So there is no question, but we have been observing that empty seat. However, as it is now, no load factor, no full load factor yet. And also, we have been flying safely. There haven't been any occurrence that is not pleasant. So everything has been going on well as planned. And I think so far, so good. The compliance level has been very high on the part of everybody, including the passenger. And we have to commend everybody for a good outing so far.
Well, I was going to ask about that compliance of these measures that have been put in place to ensure, to sort of curb the spread of the virus. So can you speak more to the compliance level and the consequences for failure to observe these rules, the stipulated guidelines for flying? Yeah,
the compliance level has been very, very high from all segments. For example, coming from the passengers have been complying in total. We're coming to the airport with their mask, subjecting themselves to all manners of screening that are required, the health protocol that are required, and of course, also washing their hands at the designated places, applying the sanitizer, subjecting themselves for the body temperature recording, and of course, also from the airport authority. Every prescribed health protocol from the health authority, from the NCA, all of these requirements had been fulfilled. You can see clearly that there is no question. You come into the airport from the outside to the inside, to the tarmac, to the aboard the aircraft, everybody queue up, follow the markings, and of course, were well kitted, well dressed with their masks on. So I believe that the compliance level is almost 100% perfect and complied with. And it has also helped everybody to reach that confidence and the assurance that we are going to continue to fly safely. Remember, Nigeria has been experiencing safe flight operation for almost 6 years now without any fatality, no accident. and we intend to work and maintain and sustain it so that we continue to fly safely, that people are going to move from one point to the other safely without any fear. So this is what we are working on, and we thank God, and we want to commend every Nigerians, all the air travelers, all the stakeholders for joining hands together, because safety requires a collective effort, as I demonstrated in this case, and it has helped so well.
Well, you sound very confident in these measures that you've put the association, the federal government, and the FAN and NCAA have put in place for travel to resume. But do you think these measures are enough? Because for some countries, they require that tests be done or that immunity passports be shown before traveling takes place, just to help with biosecurity measures, especially because of the impracticability of social distancing, especially when flights resume full operations. So do you think that what you have in place is enough? Do you think that maybe you should start to think of carrying out tests or having immunity passports carried along with passengers?
Well, whatever we are doing now is in line with the global stated or prescribed protocols. So we are not doing anything less. But we have opportunity of adding to what we have. Definitely, we will add to it. And the fact still remains that when you talk about tests, the cost of tests, that is very, very exorbitant. You have to make do with what you have. But what we have is not manufactured 100% by us. These are prescriptions that come from those agencies, the Global, the World Health, the Health, the NCDC, all of them put together. That is the prescription they gave us, and we are applying, and that is what is applicable elsewhere. Whatever we are doing is being done globally. But those who have the wherewithal and to add on to it, definitely we will continue to collaborate and add to it where necessary.
Okay, the NCCA announced in June that about six airlines, now it's 8, met the worthiness requirements. But there are so many more airlines than this 6 or 8. What have been the barriers to meeting these requirements for flying?
Well, let me make it very clear. We have about 8 scheduled airline operators. What we mean by that, the airline that are operating on our register of 2 categories. You have what we call the scheduled operators. Those are the airlines that are on schedule. They publish their movement and they carry for hire and reward, meaning that you buy their ticket to fly on them. Those are scheduled commercial airlines, and there are about 8 of them. Now, we have some other airlines that are close to altogether. In fact, the airline are registered altogether, they're about 28. But most of them are doing what we call charter operator cargo services, and some are owned by organizations. You talk about Mobi, you talk about immigration, you talk about police. They all have their helicopters and jets for their operation. Those are not scheduled. And all of these people, before they begin to operate, they too have to file in their report, what we call standard operating procedure, fulfilling the requirement for being allowed by NCA to fly again. Now, in addition to that, when you put all of them together, they all submitted their requirement. We are reviewing it. Only those who fulfill all the requirements and met the standard that were allowed. That is exactly what led to that having 6 initially. But we go through all of them. Only 1 or 2 things that remain. The remaining 2 have fulfilled it, and of course, they are also clear and they have joined the service. So exactly what happened. Of course, on the other non-scheduled operators, yes, we are reviewing that documentation too, and as soon as some of them are already fulfilled it, but as soon as they all fulfill, then of course we allow them to begin operation, even as unscheduled the operation is.
What are these requirements that they have to meet?
Well, some of the requirements, let me just go through it. Some are technical, and of course some have to do with security, and some has to do with the health protocol. I just categorize in that 3 order. The technical aspect has to do with the airworthiness of the airplane. It has to do with the licensing of the personnel, the flight crew, the cabin crew, the pilot, the flight engineer. They have to be current in their license. Now, you have to look at also the security aspect, what they have as the security of their passengers or their cargo and all of these. Those are the aspect of the technical aspect, which is not so open to the public. Now, you look at the aspect of the health protocol. That is where you now have to put in the crew have to have their personal equipment, safety equipment kits, and of course, what they have for their passengers, and of course, the mask, the sanitizer, all of these has to be acquired and must be verifiable by us. Then they have to, put up what we call a manual, which I can summarily call the standard operating procedure. We have to go through it, we have to approve it before they can be cleared to operate. Those are the areas that documentation that we look through, and until you fulfill all of these requirements, you may not be allowed to operate.
Okay, so let's move on to another question. So is there any form of stimulus package from the federal government for airline operators that they've been out of work for so long, for about 4 months now? So is the federal government planning any form of stimulus package for these people?
Well, I would not be able to answer that categorically because our mandate start and end with the safety of that airplane. Yes, we have discussed, we have made recommendations as an organization to government, and government has gladly acceded to packaging a stimulus to palliative to the industry, not just to the airline, to the industry. Remember, it's not only airline that are hit by this pandemic. Every stakeholder has been affected one way or the other, because you're talking about no income coming in and you keep spending. This is something that has happened to everybody, and nobody is immune. There's no room of escaping it. We are all affected. That is why whatever government is packaging is going to be to the whole industry. Everyone that operates in the sector has been affected one way or the other. And for now, we are waiting for how, of course, the Central Bank of Nigeria Land is going to coordinate whatever they are going to do for the industry. And that is where we are for now. But it's a sacrifice that everybody has to be involved one way or the other, including the passenger. Everybody has to bear the cost, because what is happening and it keep happening now is spending without income. Everybody will have to make a sacrifice one way or the other.
Okay, so airlines have jacked up airfares generally. For instance, we see that Dana, some airlines anyways, let me just have increased their fares from like 18,000 to about 33,000. This has been happening generally across airlines, not just Dana, as many of the airlines that have resumed flight operations. So I'm just trying to find out, as the regulatory body, is there anything you're doing to sort of mitigate the impact on passengers?
Well, the airfare regarding you remember the airline industry has been deregulated, and airfare aspect of it also has been totally deregulated. It's determined by demand and supply. So we don't regulate what the airline charge as airfare. But however, when they introduce their fare, they have to notify us. But however, it does not mean that we're going to peg it or stop them. No, it is demand and supply. Even before pandemic, airfare varies. When you check online, far ahead of your trip, you pay less. When you go to the counter to buy your ticket, you pay more. It has always been this demand and supply marketing strategy. So if people are paying 60, people have been paying 60 on a 1 hour flight before if they buy the ticket on the day of traveling. While on the same flight, somebody can buy it for a lower rate, have it booked online earlier. So all of these are at play, which is still, even now that we are coming out of the pandemic and resuming operation, demand and supply will determine. If an airline fixes airfare up there and it did not get passenger, it's going to bring it down. So that is where we are. We don't regulate the airfare. It's deregulated totally.
So we move on to another question, which is one of the advisories issued in your circular on 22nd of May. It includes restriction to travelers living with disabilities and reduced mobility and ensuring that minors are no longer flying, or something of that sort. Do you envisage any complaints as regards this particular issue that we've raised in your circular, especially when you think about the human rights violation, freedom of movement, restriction of freedom of movement, and then somewhat discrimination? For instance, the International Civil Aviation Organization recommends non-discriminatory and evidence-based transparent methods in your guidelines. But as it is now, you're sort of excluding travelers living with disabilities. What do you say to that? Why was that included in your advisory?
Well, I think you have to realize that whatever we are doing, we are guided. Yes, ICAO, you have rightly quoted ICAO, but also again, we are guided by the health authorities, various health authorities. I told you earlier that in managing this COVID-19, every nation of the world, we all belong to the UN. And by extension, we are under the advisories of World Health Organization. So we are taking advice also from all these bodies, health authorities in Nigeria, NCDC. We are taking from, of course, the World Health Organization. And of course, also, ICAO is predominantly concerned with the safety of that passengers and the aircraft. And of course, IATA is here as an association of the big carriers all over the world. Everybody is interested in the safety of that passenger. Whatever we have done, we are being guided and we are after the health, the safety of the individual being moved from one point to the other. It's not that we are violating.
Which of the agents?
I didn't get you.
Which of these organizations are you talking about that encouraged the sort of exclusion of people living with disabilities?
No, nobody deliberately encouraged exclusion. But I'm telling you that whatever we have been doing, we are guided by the prescriptions from the health authorities. And if the life of what do you call them now, the disabled or whatever, people with disabilities are going to be in danger, I think it's better to stay alive than to move and be in danger. So whatever decision will be taken by NCA, it is the interest of individuals, not at our own expense. Is that taking care of people so that they can. Our main preoccupation is moving you from one point to the other safely. And if it's not certain that they can move you from one point to the other safely, then the decision has to be taken, even though it may not be pleasant.
Okay, so for now, it's not possible that these people living with disabilities, will be moved safely to their destinations. So that's why you're taking.
No, we have reviewed that already. Even as the current movement, that circular has also been reviewed. No, we keep updating. As we speak, if you go to the airport, you see people that are being moved around with wheelchairs. So that circular has been reviewed already.
Okay, but it hasn't been updated yet, documented.
It has been reviewed because as of today, people with disabilities are flying.
Okay, so
but that is what we're taking at the point where we feel. Pardon me?
No, you were going on.
I didn't get your question.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I haven't asked any question just yet. You were speaking.
Okay, what I was saying is that at the time the main circular was issued, that was what informed the decision, but it has since been reviewed.
Okay. But right now, passengers have to arrive 3 hours before departure to contain the spread. So why 3 hours?
Well, it was well thought out that because we need more time now to screen the passengers. Each one has to wash their hands. Each one has to apply sanitizers. Each of the passenger temperature has to be read or recorded and be sure that they have a good temperature, because those are the initial symptoms that will give away a person that's have a symptom that needed to be subject to further review. So you need time to do all of these. And even before now, you require about 1 hour to arrive for a local flight and about 2 hours for a foreign international flight. Now, if with added responsibility of the screening formalities now, then of course, definitely you need more time to arrive. But however, we are also not resting on that. We keep working out and see modalities on how that time could be reduced by way of looking at the possibility of encouraging passengers to check in online. So that if you check in online, you have little time to spend at the terminal or just for the screening of checking your temperature, wash your hand, and apply the sanitizer. So you have little less to do at the counter. So that will save time. So where we are going, we keep reviewing, we keep collaborating and see how is it being done elsewhere. What are we doing that others are not doing? What are others that we are not doing? And keep accommodating it to make it faster.
Okay. When will international flights resume? Because a lot of people are wondering about this.
International flight will resume as soon as the coast is cleared. Number one, what has been done at the local airports regarding the terminal building, the tarmac, all the markings, all the equipment and structures redesigning has to be done also at the terminal of the international as well. That's number one. And it's going to attest at a cost, but they're already working on that. Then also, we have to also ensure that the other countries where we even want to operate to, they have also opened up. Remember again, in this game, we are collaborating. International flight is reciprocal. You don't open your airspace to fly out when others have not opened their own. And there have been others that opened their own, maybe too early, if I may say that have recorded upsurge in the pandemic in their country, and they have to close down, holiday close down again. We don't want to open and close down. We want to open only when it is safe and secure for us to open up. However, we are monitoring what happened elsewhere. And remember, until, for example, some countries still having it upsurge. Do you open to fly there? They have not even opened up theirs. So people should not necessarily be in a hurry. We also want to move around. But if there is a case of people who are trapped or stranded at any country all over the world, the solutions are there. They just need to link up with the diaspora or link up with the Ministry of External Affairs, and there will be an arrangement to ferry them back home. That is being done for those who are caught up in any countries of the world. And as we speak, even flight came in today for Nigerians that are stranded in other countries of the world. So that can be taken care of if people are stranded here and there. But however, on account of opening up to commence regular flights, we are monitoring, we are working on the modality that have been done on the local. You can see even the local operations, we didn't throw it open all at the same time. Because what you saw, or we have seen at the Lagos, Abuja, and the 5 airport must be extended to all the 22 airports we have. And it's at a great cost, and it is not budgeted for. And there is no income coming into all these agencies that are spending this, that are incurring this cost. So we have to extend all these, and that is why we cannot just open it at a go. And as good as it is to fly internationally, how many countries have opened up, and to what extent?
Okay, so if these countries open up and if international flights resume fully, not just rescue operations or getting people to come back to the country, if international flights resume, what will be the guidelines that we'll be looking, that we would be expecting? The
same guideline that we are operating on the domestic operation is what will be extended to the international flight. I'm not saying that some countries have not opened up, but I am saying that why we have not opened up, two reasons. We don't want, it's a futile exercise if we open up and we have to close. Some have opened and closed thereafter, a few days later. Yes, people are opening. It depends on the measure of, look, we are in Nigeria and we are seeing the record of what is happening every day. The increase in the cases of a pandemic, coronavirus, is spreading in Nigeria. Do you open up for more to come in or what? So people, I think we should take it that we have to be allowed to fly, whether locally or internationally.
Yeah, because when you said that, I was just going to think of that. Well, if you definitely opened up the airspace, even for domestic flights, cases are still increasing, but you opened it up. So can't the same argument be made for international flights as well? I mean, especially if the destinations are, those places are as well opened as well.
I believe as in Nigeria, we are talking to ourselves as in Nigeria, you can see the pressure from every quarter, from labor, from government, from institutions. Okay, some people have called for opening of schools, and the government said, let's open. And there was 90% outcry that they should not open, and government had to backtrack. So the issue remains that when you pressurize the authority to open up, that is why we couldn't just even throw it open and experiment and see and gauge and measure and see what happens. If there is an upsurge on account of this opening of domestic, what do you think will happen? So I told you earlier that we are not just the one taking the decision on whether to open or close. We are being guided, and various agencies and authorities and the federal, the presidential task force. So also international. If today we ask open or international, we have no option that to open. We are a social organization and we are under authority. We are agency of government. We enforce government decision and policy on that. But however, why is it not open now? And I just said it that there are certain parameters we have to look at. All the places we want to open or apply to, are they all open? And what is the upsurge in those countries? What is our rate here? And of course, what is happening, what you are seeing now is because of the number of the tests is increasing. That's why we're having what we have. It's not as if it's just coming in fresh. It is those who have come in, and it's a community spreading as the health authority have established. So we don't want to add to it from international scene.
Okay, we have a question from one of viewers. He wants to understand if the NCAA is worried about Europe, excluding Nigeria. As Europe has opened up its country, opened up its airspace to a lot of countries, but excluded Nigeria. He wants to find out if the NCAA is worried about this and if there are negotiations going on to change this.
Well, we are monitoring whatever is happening all over the world. Flight operation can only emanate from a country to a country that have a flight right to each other. You cannot operate to a country if you don't have a flight right to that country. If Europe open up to themselves, not only to that they close against Nigeria. For now, I think they too are experimenting. If they don't open to us, and you can be sure it's reciprocal, we will open to them. And don't think there's any European country that don't want to fly to Nigeria. I don't think it's possible. All they are national, they are here, they are doing business, we are doing business together. No country is in an island to itself. So, but of course, good thing about international travel is that it's reciprocal, it's two-way. You open up to me, I open up to you. But in any case, we are not even opening up for now because of the parameter I've explained.
Okay, so for now, when you're not opening up, and then you have not initiated any conversation with Europe as regards the exclusion of Nigeria.
No, that would be done at the high governmental level. You have Federal Ministry of External Affairs. You have a lot of presidential task force are there. It's not at our level that will be engaging in that. But that, certainly, if there is a need for that, I can assure you that government would have done that at the higher level.
So, in just moving forward, in what way do you think that the aviation industry will evolve? What changes will be permanent? How are we going to move forward in the light of living in COVID era?
Well, I think the most important thing is so far so good. The pandemic is here and it's being managed very well to the utmost best of authorities in charge. And so far, I can say we are like what we all know now is new normal. It has brought about some lessons has been learned, and of course some cultures and tradition has to be reviewed, and some system has to be adopted. For example, you can see what we are doing now. We are doing our interview through this medium, virtual, which was never before. So a lot of lessons has been learned. A lot of things have been done now that is going to even help. That is a great lesson that has relieved us in one way or the other. I think we are going to learn from this and begin to see what we can adopt for a better outing, and even at a reduced cost. So many things have been done. There are so many meetings we have as an organization through this medium also that would have saved us a lot of money that could have been cured in having to take a space in a hall or hotel and having move people from one station to the other and spend monies in flying and staying in hotel. So all of these lessons have been learned. We are also noting it and see how we can adopt it for a better outing at a reduced cost and still deliver on our mandate.
Okay, speak to us about some of the lessons that you've learned.
I just give one instance. For example, we have been having stakeholders. We have been having stakeholders conference. We have about 5 of them. We are over 400. The last one we have, last Tuesday, it was about 400 participants. For us to host a stakeholders conference require in an hotel or a conference center, you know what it means to feed them. We have to have maybe have tea break, have lunch, have all the rest, have conference bag, and of course move personnel from one point to the other, pay for the center and all the rest. So a lot of costs have been saved only for the subscription to this channel that the organization has been involved in. And that is a great lesson for us, that so many meetings can be done internally and externally and save a lot of money and even security of moving from one point to the other without having to hire centers and all the rest. No menu, no tea break, no water, no buying of food. It's a great lesson to us. And that has even helped our operations seriously. And that is one of the lessons. And of course, the new normal wearing of masks, arriving at the airport, that again is going to enhance some level of discipline in individuals about movement, having to plan your movement, move ahead, whether you are going to do online checking, whether you are going to the airport on time. If somebody is getting to the airport at 1 hour before and now going to be 3 hours, he's going to change his lifestyle of planning his movement or her movement. So all of these are a great lesson to all of us that we are all learning from and adopting for a better outing and at a reduced cost.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Adurogboye, for joining in. It was a good conversation.
It's a pleasure having me. I appreciate.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, viewers, for joining in. This was another episode of the Cable Live series. We will be back same time next week.